That's probably the other. Well, see, the problem is it's downloads from Time Warner are faster. The other end may not be feeding it fast enough for Time Warner to download it to. Maybe, if you hit Command and hold on to the Command key and hit the tab, it will show you all the or all the programs that are currently running. That's all the faced programs that you might have launched and then forget to close it. It's still back there running. Yep. You often want to go back to it anyway. You forget it's there, and suddenly you've got so many apps running. Hold on Command and hit Tab, and that's the option that lets you switch between open programs, but it shows you all your programs that are open. If you look in the dock, there's a black dot under the bottom of there's a black dot underneath the program icon if the program is open. And if there's no black dot, I don't know if I can zoom this in enough to show up. No, so there's a black dot in the black border of the projector to show you that program is running. Super. Originally in the 4S, it was Siri. And then in the 5S, it was security because they added the fingerprint reader. It's just part of the pattern now. The 6 versus the 6S, the S has better guts, better camera, better processor. So it's the next year's model. So now we're expecting the 7 and the 7S to come out this year. That usually the camera gets better quality. Each camera gotten successively better. Yeah. Let's see. What version this is? Yeah. So Clear History does all the history and all the cache. So you can limit on how often it doesn't, and you can say all, so that it will clear all the history and all the cache. It also may be related to your ad blocker.
Yeah, this is
right. But she doesn't have an ad blocker. Okay. that can be an issue with some websites. Yep. So we've got a camera that we can.
I want to show things.
Yeah, so you can point the camera. Do we need to see your screen at all?
I want to show some videos on the internet. So
okay.
What's the best way to do that? I am
on
on your
on the wireless network?
Yeah.
You should have an airport menu. Don't.
Airport menu.
Let's see one. So go to Apple menu and system preferences and displays. Show options on the menu. Hold on your Wi-Fi icon again. Oh, you're on a different network. Go to RC network.
I've got to remember that. Stupid password.
Yeah. I started writing it down. Look it up.
There was a little phrase related to the church that you remember.
I bet it's in last year's notes. No, it isn't. All right, so we are Risen Christ Lutheran Church. All right, capital A, F, M,
Wait a minute, it's not taking.
I'm going to block the screen for a minute. Okay.
This is on my local anyway.
This will give the audio
And I put it in the right place.
What model computer is this?
3 or 4 years old.
Maybe too old for airplane mirroring. So so copy 10. It's 2009. That's probably too old. 2009. That's a long time ago in computer years. Grab some of my screen while you're finding that. I've got one if you don't.
This is Lucy.
Wow, that wasn't good.
Lucy doesn't have a left forearm. She was born that way. Normally, if Lucy wanted to get a prosthetic arm, it would cost thousands of dollars. That's a lot of money for something she'll outgrow in a year.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, I just rejoined. I had a little hiatus. I was busy. I came just to the picnic recently and had signed up to do this presentation. So I'll describe my history when I get started. Oh, that'll be more than that will be more than I need. But I'm sort of playing it by ear. I had several ideas about what to try to present. And, I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do. So we'll play it by ear and see how it goes. Yes, yes. I didn't bring one, and I'll explain why. You got the message. That's you're anticipating my opening statement. So.
Al was ready to do a program and they spliced together all these successful launches that didn't show up.
Yep, yep. So that's my plan.
So you have some options.
Yes. Things for people.
To what extent here.
Yes. No,
Cosmetic versus,
yeah, that's the kind of thing. And I'll leave a lot of room for open discussion. People coming up and handling things and whatever. Great, thank you. What's that? Of what? Well, oh, yeah, you got it. I'm so used to it, I don't even notice anymore. Right. You didn't happen to bring any connectors with you. Steve went out to get some, he went to get some ice cream. I thought I'd try to plumb off with somebody else. Hands down, yes.
yes.
Find your adapter?
No, I didn't, sorry. Thank you.
Sure. Mm-hmm. They're not named like that. You just open as many windows as you want. And as many applications you want. Oh, that's the dashboard. It's a key. Don't use it anymore. It's kind of fallen out of favor. The dashboard is for additional widgets that you store things on. So I've got a couple of countdown widgets. I've got a lava lamp.
Okay.
Hit the plus button. You can add additional widgets that are in the computer. You can download additional widgets if you want. There's a feature called Space. Where it's another. So right now I have my windows on one desktop.
Yep.
I make a second desktop to move some of the windows to that desktop,
That's what
or a third desktop to move some of the windows there.
So how do I get started? How do I get started to do that?
You hit the spaces command.
Spaces command.
It's on newer keyboards.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Alrighty. We ready? I did announce, but I want to again. All right, so now I have to get the video going to the screen. I need another camera. This computer's too old for AirPlay. I need another tripod now.
It's newer than the one that traded it in for.
It's got AirPlay in iTunes, but not AirPlay mirroring, display mirroring. No, don't move the bulb. Yes, we can. That's what we're. All right, let me get the video running again. All right, so we want that to be skip. Just a minute. Now I'm trying to start again. And that to be this. Alrighty, so we've got, it's not gonna work very well. Sorry folks at home. We're not getting a very good image of the screen itself. You said you're downloading or showing video from web pages?
Yes.
Okay. And audio we've got to you. All right, so without further ado, let me introduce, Matthew, don't go away. As soon as I start, I can give you the, or ask Frank. Matthew needs the password. Ergonomic engineer, Skip, is going to show off the 3D printing and what you can do with it. You still meet at the Hungerford building?
Sometimes.
Sometimes?
I'm hanging out at RIT more right now. And let me give you a little history. About 10 years ago, I graduated from Xerox and had to become my own IT support. And I didn't feel like trying to learn the latest version of Windows, so I went out and bought myself an Apple. And I joined the Cider group, and I got my IT support. And that worked out just fine. I've been a happy guy. About 4 years ago, a couple of guys from a hackerspace downtown called Interlock, a guy named Brian and another guy named Alex brought in a printer, and that's it you see on the screen right now. It was a homemade printer that wasn't made from a kit. It was made from parts you can get from a hardware store and parts that were printed on another printer. They call these RepRap printers, and that's sort of a abbreviation for replicating, reproducing device. And you can use one printer to make parts to make another printer. And so the maker movement, people that do it yourself, took a whole new flavor with these RepRap printers. And these two guys brought this little printer in and gave a demo at the CIDR meeting about 4 years ago. And it didn't work during the demo, but it hooked me anyway. I went to Interlock and became a member there. Paid dues, so I have 24/7 access to this over at the Hunger Building, where they had tools and people that could help you. It turns out if you want a 3D printer, you need a lot of support. There is a dirty little secret about 3D printers. They're not easy to get them running or to keep them running. And if you don't have somebody to get you unstuck, when you get stuck, you're going to be a frustrated individual. You can go to any hackerspace or makerspace around the world, and you may find a half a dozen 3D printers, and maybe one of them will be working. That's just the way it is. And nerds don't like to admit that they can't make their printers run, so that's why I call it a dirty little secret. I came back about a year later with the printer that I built from a kit to show off at Apple CIDR meeting, and it didn't work either. So I didn't bother to bring a printer today. What I did, I brought some stuff that I have printed and prepared to show you some videos related to the things that I've been doing over the past 4 years. So there's a website you can go to. It turns out that hackers and makers and hardware hackers like myself share everything. This is called open source design. And you're probably all familiar with open source software. But open source hardware works kind of the same way. And 3D printers make that possible. 3D printers and the internet and websites like Thingiverse, where you can publish your designs and share them with people. This is one of the first things that I did that I was proud of, is on Thingiverse. If you'd like one, you can make it yourself. It's a stand for iPads. And it's a good demonstration of what I mean by hardware hacking. It has a regular off-the-shelf bought keyboard that attaches to my iPad. And I printed a stand, and it also has a protective case. But instead of printing all the parts, I bought the protective snap-on case from Amazon for $7. And I printed some parts that I could screw onto it to make the stand and handle. And so it's great for making videos. It's nothing like being able to take a picture or a video with the screen big enough to see it, not little windows to look into and you can't tell what you're shooting. So for a long time, I used this instead of a laptop. Carried around with me. Batteries last 8 hours, you know, and the laptop may last a couple. Probably run out of battery while I'm doing the show. But anyway, I also made stands for iPhones. Find that one. And you publish these things, like I said, on Thingiverse. And people can download the files. If you've got a 3D printer, you can make a little stand for your iPhone. So, you know, if you're doing a selfie, you can set it up the way you want to and make your little video, or I could make a video of you guys. And it's like having a little tripod. I also hang it on my gear shifter in my car and run my maps, you know, for GPS and all of that. So these are the kind of things that I was doing with my printer for a couple of years. And here's something that I did just within the last couple of weeks. The design tools that I use, I got training from a guy at Interlock, the same guy that gave the demonstration, Brian, actually, Bucaron. He tried me first on an application called SketchUp, and I just didn't seem to be able to catch on to that. And he said, well, try you on Tinkercad. And so Tinkercad had some good little tutorials. It's made for kids to use. Turns out I could use it. I don't know if you can see this. See if I can do that command. And if I can scroll over there, I have now 1,680 designs saved on my Tinkercad files. Page after page after page after page of designs. I've been doing it for 4 years, so that's more than a design a day for years. And oh, by the way, I've printed all of these things at least once. So those are just the ones I've saved. It turns out Tinkercad's very efficient, and you can be very prolific and iterate. The whole idea of 3D printing for me is for rapid prototyping. I've been designing things all my life. I worked for Xerox for 20 years. And I'm accustomed to having to make things by hand the hard way with hand tools mostly. I use things like a Dremel tool and an X-Acto knife and sanders and saws and things like that. And it takes a long time to make things, little boxes and whatever that actually work. And like I said, this is one I just made last week or 2 weeks ago. And it's made in parts. And it's actually, I'm kind of proud of it. It's made like a door hinge. It's got a hinge pin and the two parts go together. Let's see if I can get on my designs here. Screen's kind of small. Be able to find it. Well, that's right. You get the idea. At any rate, the difference between a door hinge and the hinge on the little box that I printed is that instead of round hinge points that the pin goes through, I made them square. And so they kind of like spring and notch into 45-degree angles. So I can make a box that is smooth on the outside, put hinge pins back in this last one, or I can make a box that's smooth on the inside. Oops. And I can make caps for the box out of a rubbery material. Just in the past month, we've learned to print on flexible material in our lab. So I think this would be useful. You want to make a little box to put your electronics project in. You want to put some rubber ends on it. So pass it around.
And I have to say that Tinkercad is a free utility from Autodesk.
Yes,
And Autodesk is probably the premier 3D design program that everybody uses at the super high end.
CAD.
CAD.
Tinkercad.
Yep.
Yep. And
they have a neat tool for the iPad called Sculpt, and you start with a block of clay and you just grab it and ooze it and stretch it and pull it and make something. and then you can 3D print it.
So if you'd like to learn things like this, there's a hackerspace called Interlock, and there's a makerspace downtown in Rochester, and all of these have open house available for people to come in and take classes and so forth. You can also find me in a lab at RIT now. I'm hanging out there about 7 days a week as a volunteer. And there's a lot of good things about being a volunteer instead of a paid employee. When you get to be retired and you don't need a paycheck anymore, and you're interested in doing projects and research and exploring things, if you're not accepting a paycheck from anybody, nobody's going to tell you what to do. And I don't plan. I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow until I see what I discovered today. And that's the way my life is, and I'm loving it. It's never been that way before. I'll make that information available to you. I have an email address. Oops. There.
If you Google your name, the first thing that comes up is your Tinkercad account.
Yeah, okay. Here's my phone number, 585-415-8886, and you can text me and find out if I'm there. I'll tell you how to find me and whatever. And skip.mets at gmail.com will get me also. But let's see, how shall I tell the story about how I got to RIT? A friend invited me to go over to a lab with him on Friday afternoon, and I watched Professor John Schull put an arm on it's a little boy, actually, a boy named Derek. This was 2 years ago, and he had printed, or his students had printed this arm with the parts that went together to make the arm. They had printed it on a 3D printer, not too much different than the one I just showed you a picture of. Who would have thought that you could make an assistive device like an arm or a hand with a 3D printer? Yes. Or a finger. So I found out that there's this organization that John Schull happened to be the founder of, and I'm going to show you a little video of how that all got started, to make hands for kids that were born without fingers. There's a condition called amniotic band syndrome, where while the fetus is still in the womb, something gets wrapped around one of the limbs and cuts off the circulation, so it doesn't form properly. And they may end up with no fingers on one hand, or maybe they have no hand and part of their arm missing, just due to the poor circulation to that limb while it's developing in the womb. And so let me see if I can find video.
This is Lucy. Lucy doesn't have a left forearm.
How can I make that full screen?
She was born that way.
It's not showing up on this little, oh, there it is. Start you over.
This is Lucy. Lucy doesn't have a left forearm. She was born that way. Normally, if Lucy wanted to get a prosthetic arm, it would cost thousands of dollars. That's a lot of money for something she'll outgrow in a year. See this bucket of purple goop? Lucy is about to stick her arm in there to get fitted for a new prosthetic device. But this one won't cost her parents thousands of dollars. In fact, they don't even need to buy it. No one does. All they have to do is print it. I'm Daisy Rosario. I'm on a mission to find tomorrow. But today, my journey leads me to a scout retreat. Here in Maryland, an unlikely group of boys and girls are helping make affordable prosthetic devices a reality. So what are you getting ready to do?
Right now we're just getting the printer ready to start a print.
This is Sarah, one of these renegade scouts. And right now she's showing me how to use a 3D printer.
Okay, and it's saying it'll finish in about 20 minutes.
Oh, there it goes. This is Connor. He's a senior patrol leader.
All right, guys, how many of you have seen these before or something like them? Whoa, okay, a lot of you guys. So can I hear what they are. Yeah. They are prosthetic hands. What was that? From a 3D printer, absolutely.
This is a youth-run retreat, so the Scout leaders can essentially talk about whatever they want.
Everybody go like this.
Today, they're talking about how to print hands for kids like Lucy. And while interest amongst the Scouts is quickly growing, they can't possibly keep up with the demand themselves. Every year, roughly 1,000 babies are born missing all or part of a limb in the US alone. These Scouts are part of a worldwide network of volunteers, with help coming in from youth groups, schools, maker spaces, and basement laboratories. And if you ask any of those people who's behind this global operation, they'll all point to a research scientist at RIT named John Shull. How did you find your way to this?
You know, about 26 months ago, instead of preparing a class, I was looking at videos on YouTube. I came across one about a South African carpenter who had a shop accident and accidentally cut the fingers off one hand, and is told that partial hand prosthetics are really expensive and hard to come by. He went to Google and he found his way to Ivan Owen, a puppet maker and prop maker in Washington State, who had made a great big mechanical hand controlled by fingers as a great puppet for a movie scene. And together they worked for over a year designing this hand, and he explained that they had eventually come upon a way of 3D printing this device, that they had eventually come to recognize that this device could be helpful not just for people who had fingers chopped off in a wood shop, but, for example, for people born with fingers and hands. And he mentioned that he was putting the design online. YouTube video comments are the most demoralizing literary genre in the history of mankind. In this case, there were a number of people who said, this is really great what this guy is doing. I would do that. And so I called their bluff.
John created a simple map and left a YouTube comment of his own. Volunteers with 3D printers quickly started to show up. And not just a couple, a lot. So now, if someone like Lucy needs a hand, her family can check John's map and find someone near them who can make it. In other words,
it worked.
Now I'm gonna
Try some with it. All right.
what started with John's map has snowballed to become a worldwide network called eNABLE. While medical-grade prosthetics can cost many thousands of dollars, the eNABLE network makes arms for about $45 worth of materials and delivers them to children in need at no cost. These devices are completely mechanical, using movement from the recipient's existing limbs to allow them to grasp objects. It's not a perfect solution, but eNABLE is constantly refining it.
Lucy, I think this is the one you had at home, right? You're interested in showing us what you can do with it?
Lucy has been working with John for over a year now to help develop a new model of 3D printed arm for the eNABLE network.
Did that come out? Let's see, what'd you do?
came out.
It came out.
No,
It's
I was
okay.
pushing it in.
You're right. You're right. Okay, so that's, there you go. You did it. That's something we can fix. We'll call that the Lucy bolt. Okay, we'll work on that.
Currently, eNABLE can produce and iterate on its devices without government restriction. But even if that doesn't last forever, momentum is on John's side.
Our real mission is just to get these innovations into the hands of everyone who needs them every which way we can while we're in this window of opportunity.
So far, eNABLE has delivered hands in 37 countries and recently received a $600,000 grant from Google.org. eNABLE plans to reduce production costs from $45 to $25 and give away 6,000 prosthetics in the next 2 years. But John thinks hands and arms are just the beginning.
This general internet collaboration scheme is almost certainly going to lead to participatory medicine, advances in nutrition and pharmaceuticals. But I think it really means that there's a new era of crowd science and technology that is really going to change things in a very exciting and democratizing way.
So what started as a YouTube comment turned into one of the most inspiring philanthropic efforts of the 21st century. And if that's possible, well, why stop there?
What would you like to see next? Is there anything else you'd like to be able to do?
Cartwheel and I want one that shoots out candy.
Lucy's our favorite test pilot. She's got her 5th version of an arm right now, and we're working on another one. In the lab, we're doing research and development more than trying to help individual people. So we keep going back to the same people with revisions and new things to let them compare how we're doing with our new designs. And we started out, as I said, with the hands for kids that are just missing fingers. They have a palm and a working wrist. And when they bend their wrist, it pulls strings. That make the fingers grasp. So, takes a little practice to make this work.
You made it look easy on the video.
Well, she's practiced. Anyway, pass this around. Little box, we can make those too. Yeah, great. So the wrist-powered hand came out of the work with that carpenter in South Africa several years ago. And in John's lab, they've been working on arms for the whole time I've known about them. And so I went in and saw him put an arm on a kid named Derek, and I was hooked. I went back to my little space over at Interlock with my little printer and started learning how to make hands. John kept in touch with me. He lived in the neighborhood. He would stop by and see how I was doing. And after a few weeks of stopping in and checking on me and seeing what I was doing, he said, you know, I need a grown-up to hang out in my lab when I'm out of town, and I'm out of town a lot. How'd you like to come over to our lab at RIT and do what you're doing, but do it there instead of here? And I said, okay. And I've been there ever since. Like I said, I go in about 7 days a week because I'm what I love to do and I'm having fun. And you know, the whole thing has spread the way it has. There are over 9,000 members of this community now. And a lot of them are volunteers that are making hands. A lot of them are people that need or know people that need hands and arms. And a lot of them are just interested in seeing how this thing is working and what's going on and what they can learn from it. But for me, all of us do things for the community. We donate to charities, may give to a church or something. And if you donate to a relief fund for Nepal or something like that, you may not know exactly where your money's going. But us volunteers are actually paying for the materials and the printers and the things that we use to make these arms and hands. When we give them to a child, the child and the family don't have to pay anything. And this is going on all around the world. You know, when I put an arm on a little, I know exactly where my money went. And that's an unusual situation that's made available by the technology that we have. We can see what the results of what we're doing. And I think that's why it's become so successful. So I'd like to tell you a little about the advances that we're making and the things that I've been discovering and why I'm having so much fun. It turns out that arms are a little tougher. I don't consider these things to be like artificial hands and artificial arms. They're more like assistive devices. I think of them as like a baseball glove. I can catch a baseball with my bare hand, but I can catch it a lot better if I wear a baseball glove. And I can hit it with my bare fist, but I can hit it a lot better with a baseball bat. And Lucy and the kids that use these devices are using them in that way. It's not taking the place of a hand, but it's an accessory that they can use to do specific tasks. And it doesn't open up big enough for that. But this particular one works like the familiar split hook. Have you seen people missing an arm that have the split hook on the end of a stick on their arm? Looks like this. This has been in use for 150 years, at least since the Civil War. And it's still the favorite terminal device for a prosthetic arm because it is so effective. It has only one moving part, one joint, and it's held in a grip with a rubber band.
The height of Civil War technology.
And yeah, and so The rubber band is doing the work, holding what it is you're picking up. You only use your own muscles to release. So the thing is powered by a shoulder harness and a cable that's very much like a brake cable on a bicycle. It's actually called the same thing as a Bowden cable, presumably named after Mr. Bowden. And so the typical arm prosthetic is hooked to a figure-8 shoulder harness. So when you shrug your shoulders, it pulls the string and it pulls the device open. And you relax and it lets it close on whatever it is you're trying to pick up. And this is not open and big enough to pick up that device. It'll pick up that device. So, like with the hook, this one was designed so that the rubber band is doing the work, and you only use your own muscles to release it. So if you're holding on to a handlebar or to a fork, two-handed task. Like if you want to cut your meat, you need two hands for that. You hold the meat with your fork and cut it with a knife with the other hand. There are a lot of things that you do that take two hands, tying your shoe, zipping up your jacket, and those kinds of things. And the people that don't have the use of both hands adjust very well, especially if they're born that way. They learn to do everything. There's a lot of things that we could do better with three hands, you know, but we do fine with two for most everything we have to do. So this works like the split hook. That's a new innovation that came out of our lab. Occupational therapist who lives in Buffalo is one of our volunteers, and I got to know him. He is one of those ABS, congenital transradial. The radius is the big bone in your forearm. He's, you know, missing his arm from here down, just like Lucy. And he's been wearing a prosthesis with a hook. He's 40-ish, so for, I don't know, 30 years probably. And he helped me come up with the idea for this one that worked like the split hook, but it looks more like a regular hand. And I got a little video to show you how he demonstrated for us that this works. He came to our lab last October and demonstrated his prosthesis with the split hook and so forth, and showed us some of the terminal devices that he had, and helped us to come up with this thing we call the gripper thumb. And a month later, that's how fast we work. A month later, in November, had this maker fair, and I had the gripper thumb ready for him to try out. And the part of the design intent was to make it so that you could screw off your split hook and screw on the gripper thumb that just screws into the same kind of a device that that the prosthetists, the certified prosthetists, are providing people like this already. So here's a little video that shows Nate trying it out for the first time. He's taken off his hook. He's put in on his gripper thumb that he helped design, but this is the first time he's seen it. It's the first time anybody has seen it, except the people in our lab. So he's screwing it in. You can see the Bowden cable that hooks up to his shoulder harness there. And it hooks into the gripper thumb, just like it hooks into the split hook. With the Bowden cable if you want, but you don't have to.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's see if it works.
So I asked him to see if he could tie a shoe. That's kind of like one of the ultimate tests.
All right.
So he hasn't practiced with it at all. It's enough like, we intentionally tried to make it enough like the hook so that it would work for him.
I'm not good at the so I got to bring in my right hand. I'm using my right hand to pull on this thing.
Okay.
Now I'm kind of holding Lisa steady with this.
did it. Hey. All right. What do you think, Luce? Lucy was at that Maker Fair too. She got a new arm too. Anyway, I'm going to pass this around. You can see how it works. At RIT, we've been making elbow-powered devices. And as I said, most of these things have been working with shoulder-powered devices. The prosthetist professionals are still leery about the elbow-powered ones, but we're slowly winning them over. And we're doing it by making modular systems where the parts are interchangeable with the things that they're making. So they can experiment with them, try them out, do their own clinical testing to see if any of our ideas are good for them. They're very interested in being able to use technology like 3D printing too. So there's several things that go into this gripper thumb and this arm design that are new and came out of our lab. We print things flat and thermoform them. Let's see if I've got one. This hand was actually printed flat like this with the flat side down on the printer bed. And then it was heated up and the fingers were bent. And the reason for that is when you print, you have a grain. It puts down a thread like a hot glue gun, and it has motors hooked to the computer that guide it around. And it prints one layer, and then the table drops down a notch, and it prints another layer on top of that. But these layers form a grain. It's kind of like the grain in pine wood, and it's easy to split along the grain. So the grain in a hand like this, if it was printed on its back and the fingers were bent up, would have grains. And the fingers are easy to break off as though it were like pine wood with the grain the wrong way. You know, baseball bats have the grain running along the length of the bat, not crosswise. And so it prints one layer this way, and the next layer is orthogonal to that. And so it's like plywood, and it stacks up layers that so that in this direction, there's no grain. It's like a piece of plywood, and so you can bend it in either direction, it won't break. You can heat this plastic up in a toaster oven. Some types of plastic you can just heat up in hot water and bend it. So that's what was done here and here. And I see this is deformed a little bit. I need to take my heat gun and bend this more back in place. But all of these parts were made on the 3D printer, and several of them were printed flat and thermoformed. So pass this around. This is close to the latest design that Lucy has that Nate tested for us just last November. It was brand new then. Yes. Yes. No. You can see the one on here. It's made out of a surgical rubber tubing. And you need something that's grippy or it won't hold on. And the ones on the first hand that went around were bought off of Amazon. They're real pricey, but they work very well. But we're looking for things that are cheaper and easier to make. Oh, this one has some tape on it actually that is made by the Loctite company. It just got from the hardware store. It sticks to itself. Wrap it around. I didn't have the ones that were made with the rubber tubing. We're just learning to print with flexible materials. A little box that I sent had lids that were made from flexible material. Oh, yeah, sorry. The flexible material will let you make hands that look a little more realistic and feel more realistic and have the grippy surface built in automatically. And it's a little tricky to print with. And like I said, printers are hard to keep them running anyway. There are about 200 parameters, settings that you have to set and have in balance when you run a print job. And if anything's out of balance, it messes up and you get a bird's nest instead of a hand. And that's literally what it looks like when you come in the morning, if it came loose from the printer bed or one of the other kinds of failures you have. So it turns out in some places in the world, it's not like the American kids that love to have a superhero hand. you know, or a robot hand. That they go from being the kid that's picked on because they're different to the kid that's like the hero in the class because they got this cool robot hand and everybody wants one. But in a lot of places, like we've got a student down at a clinic in Haiti that our Google grant is helping us to get started up with the 3D printed devices. And in Haiti, we found, like in Africa and some other places where we want to help people, cosmesis, the way the hand and arm looks, is more important than whether it's a useful tool. The people are ostracized if they're different, and they're not allowed out in public. People just won't have anything to do with them, and they lose an arm in the earthquake. You know, and it's like they got lead or something. People just won't have anything to do with them. So to give them an artificial arm, it needs to not draw attention to itself. And so we're trying to learn to make them to look as realistic as possible. And so using more natural looking designs and materials and colors, it's really important to get the colors. This is made the same design as a little box that I passed around, but you can get color charts that you can match up with the individual skin color. And we're working with companies like Eastman Chemical, who make the plastic materials that are made into filaments, to develop some colors that will work for us that we can match up to people's skin. And so that's a new piece of business that the foundation is undertaking. And like I said, we've got that going on in Africa and another project in Haiti. And you can see the progress that I'm making. This is the flexible material. I cut a notch out of it. I was going to see if I could make a gripper thumb without having a separate part, but to use the rubbery material as the springiness. And I got a ways to go there. But I printed that in 2 parts, and the 2 pieces fit together. And it turns out that I can use a soldering iron to weld the seams around the edges, and it almost disappears. So here's one I'll pass around. And here's the fun I have too. I've been trying to make a quick connect. That arm that went around earlier has the device can be unscrewed, turning it 20 times to get the 20th inch screw unscrewed, or it's desirable to have like a bayonet connector that's like a quarter turn that's easy to screw on and screw off. But I didn't have one that was easy to put on and yet wouldn't come loose very easily. I hadn't made a latch for it yet. And just the day before yesterday, I found a pill bottle, an empty pill bottle with an adult-proof cap. Guess what? That makes a nice quick connect. I'll pass this around, and you can see where we're going with realistic looking hands. This has the same rubber band powered feature. Good question. The most commonly used one is PLA, polylactic acid, and it is a type of polyester that happens to soften at below boiling water temperature. So hackers and makers and experimenters like it because they can mold it. After you print something, you can change its shape like we're doing. And not too hot to handle. So doctors use this already, making splints and casts and things for their patients. If you've had somebody to break an arm or a leg recently, you've probably seen them use something that they heat up and form to make a plastic boot or a cast for the patient. So it's not totally new technology to the medical world, but you can imagine really smart people. You mentioned Autodesk. they're one of our big sponsors, and one of their research scientists is working with the team in Haiti, and I know him personally. I was disappointed that I couldn't learn to use their new CAD program called Fusion 360. Oh, yeah. Pass them around.
We are running out of time, though. But I hate to say it because this has been fascinating.
Well, and I can come back and answer questions again at another time, too. And you can...
We'll probably be going to
me.
Noonan's up in Egypt, if anyone's interested.
I have a few cards if somebody wants to email me.
Do you have a recommendation for a 3D printer to start with? I know I've seen them in the $200–300 range, so you don't spend too much to get your fingers wet.
Probably a good one to start with is from the same company as the kit I started with. The company is called PrinterBot, and they have one called a PrinterBot, PRINTRBOT. And they have one for about $500, already fully assembled. It will only do PLA. The ABS is the other material. That's the same thing Legos and a lot of consumer products are made out of. And we print with that, but it needs a heated bed to make it stick. It's desirable to have the part to stick to the bed so it doesn't move around when you print one layer on top of the other. But you got to be able to get it off the bed when you're done. So it turns out that you use a glass bed, spray it with hairspray or something, and the ABS will stick to it if you heat it up to a certain temperature, and it will unstick when you cool it down. So those are among the tricks that make it a little tricky to do. Yes? No, but I'll get back to you if you send me an email. We
just started looking into 3D scanners at the office, and we bought a couple of them to play with and see how they work.
They're getting better, and cheaper good ones are working now, and so we're going to learn to use them in our lab. We've got some on order.
I think we started with one that was 400 that was handheld and scan around your thing, and then just for grins and giggles we looked and found one for 75,000 that you sit in a chair and it scans around you.
Yeah, so it's moving so fast, but having volunteers and very smart people. We've got a nuclear physicist in England, and we've got Andreas Bastian at Autodesk, and some really smart people that are just volunteering their time, and sometimes their companies are volunteering and sponsoring events and competitions and so forth. But I've got a few cards with my emails on it, and skip.mitz@gmail.com will get me. And I can hang around a while if any of you want to come up and play with these things while the guys are packing up.
Yeah.
Any other questions before I officially sign off?
No, thank you very much, Skip. And it's interesting to see how far the technology has progressed in just a short number of years.
It really is.
And what you're going to, I've seen things with their 3D printing cars. You know, what used to be a molded carbon fiber monocoque for your car, they're now just 3D printing it and then sanding rough edges. Yeah. Yeah, well, it depends. You keep extruding your parts and yeah.
And it's just a motion control device. So how big can you make your conveyor that moves?
The chassis. Yeah. All right, so that'll do it for tonight. Next month, we'll be back at East High School. Thank you to Lyle for getting our permit straightened out before it actually starts this year. Yeah. And also, let's remind you that Sound Bites is on Saturdays from 12 to 2 on Jazz 901 FM. And call in question and answer between meetings here. And also the Apple Cider Forums if you want to post questions. And Bob, you're going to in your study group this Saturday at 1 o'clock. Give Bob a call or just stop and see him now to let him know you're going to come. All right, thank you much. We'll see you all next month.